This meeting and all other meetings of this committee are open to the public. Proper notice has been posted and given to the press in accordance with Wisconsin statutes, so the citizenry may be aware of the time, place, and agenda of this meeting. Roll call.
Appleby?
Here.
Nadowski?
Here.
Lidkey? Here.
Alright. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from January 9th, 2017 meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Citizens appearance? Nobody? Next is discussion and possible action on grass and weed nuisance ordinance.
We talked about, as part of goals of the committee, we're gonna talk about length of grass, length of weeds, what kind of grass and weeds. I did shoot a line to a couple contacts I have, one with the USDA on our list of noxious weeds and how that applies to what like the DNR, the federal government considers to be noxious weeds. I got confirmation back that they're looking at it, but I didn't get a list yet for today. And then the only other thing we were gonna talk about was length of grass and weeds along the waterways. And Shaney had done some research on that. I'll kick it to you right away.
Okay, so I sent an email out last week to the DNR and got really fast response, which I was kind of shocked. So he's gave me a bunch of a site that I can get onto to look up more stuff, which I sent over to Patrick since I have no ink at home, so couldn't really do that. And then he gave me two names of people to talk to that deal with the zoning by the river and wetlands and stuff. And I talked to Dale this morning, and it was interesting talking to him. He said that they have no control over what city and villages do that butt up to the river and waterways. It's pretty much up to what we want to do. But if we want to help and regulate things, there are different things that we can do to help the river and the lake. I was kind of hoping that Mr. Van Ups would have been here to, because I know he has some words he'd like to
And I talked to
it.
him today.
Okay.
And so he kind of asked if he was required, and I said, well, I don't know that we were gonna put anything into law today by chance, but one of the comments he made was that apparently up until about a year and a half ago, the county, as part of their shoreland zoning, or at least their zoning that applied to the townships, required like a 30-foot buffer from the waterfront back, so you couldn't come up and legally cut your grass up. You actually had to leave 30 feet from your grass to the edge of the water, which I thought was interesting. On his end, I think what they're hoping for is they understand that people would like to have access to the waterway to fish or whatever they need, but that if, for the most part, your property or any property had like a nice long grass buffer, what you can do is prevent erosion and then control a lot of runoff, because Bob Van Eps's big concern is people put fertilizer on their yards and that ends up in the water. And he said he'd be more than happy to come to the next meeting for sure. But I told him that today we didn't really have anything out there other than just having an updated discussion.
Yeah.
So,
I thought he said it was 8 feet that he would recommend.
and that's kind of where he's at now. So his comment was on the towns, on your comment about shoreland zoning. So the county's rules would be overridden by ours as it relates to ordinances, and that's why we're talking about it here on our end. But I think on his end, 8 feet's probably a good one. I think he said up until about a year and a half ago, the 30 feet was good, except then the state changed a law, and he didn't really have the specifics. It was kind of in passing today, but he didn't tell me what it was specifically that overrode.
Well, apparently what
Law.
Dale said, and I'm not sure all, which I can send him an email to see if he could just give it to me, but he said that there are no state rules for the shoreland wetland areas. Like, they don't have any given set. It's basically up to the townships and village and cities and what they do. So, but I can clarify that with him with an email, since I seem to be back and forth with him all day today. He just said that the vegetation buffers, there's like 3 levels. There's a ground cover, there's a medium height, and then a higher one. He said it all depends on like where the river is, how it's going, what kind of fish you have in, like with the heights and stuff, because if you have a higher vegetation, it kind of keeps it shaded and cooler, which might scare off some of the game fish, where if you had it shorter and the sun could bake it, you might have some of the better fish. So I mean, it's something to look into and maybe consider before we finalize, because if it anything to kind of help with what they've got going on, I'm okay with, within reason. I mean, we could pretty much set what we need to, whether we have them cut it once a year and then just maintain a certain length at all times, or I don't know if there's anything else that you guys want me
Well,
to
the
look
only
up
thing I
or.
was- The only thing I was looking for when we discussed this before is just to make sure that whatever it is we establish, okay, from the waterways, it has to be cut at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And as long as we can define that, I just figured try and work it through the people that know what it should be to help them as well, and tie those two together, like you said, within reason.
Mhm.
If it's 30 feet, well, that's probably not reasonable on a city lot. But,
Dale was very helpful. He sent a lot of useful information today, and I had him send it to Patrick too. So there's a lot of other things too that could be looked at too with everything. So, but I can shoot him back another email if there's anything else that you guys need to know as far as that. I just liked it because he kind of he was not going around in such a circle. He actually gave me an answer, cause I was kinda worried, cause Patrick said with asking questions before, it was just kind of a mix of,
Sometimes you get conflicting info.
yeah, so I was kinda glad that he was able to just kinda clarify things today, so.
alright,
Alright, so should we just work with, talking with Bob and then, finish this up and maybe try to, get an action on it for next month?
yeah,
Does that work for you,
because
Rich?
you're still waiting on more information
Yeah.
anyways, right, Pat?
Yeah, a little bit. I guess the big thing on my end that I would hope for is basically that whatever we're gonna end up putting into law, that's like, just like you said, this is what we're gonna enforce. Cause right now, you
That's the
kinda have the
problem.
lake group kinda complaining a little bit, saying you shouldn't be shaving the shoreline, and then you get other people that say, well,
Yeah,
that's what the law says though, the ordinance, the law, so. Either way, I think it's gonna be good.
yeah, and I don't think we tell people that they can't cut it. What we enforce is this.
Yep. Yeah,
So- so
and that makes
it's
sense.
easy to enforce.
And some people are not gonna wanna use the water in front of their property, and some people are, so giving them the chance to do whatever fits for
Mhm.
them, I think is a good thing too.
I think
So you don't
so.
know if people are gonna get into more kayaking or canoeing and wanna have more access to their water, this will give them an option to kind of weigh out whatever they feel works.
Good for me.
Okay, moving on, discussion and possible action on ordinance related to city clerk functions.
So just real quick, this month, but maybe more importantly next month, we'll talk a little bit more at the finance committee about, right now, one of the roles I've got is city clerk. Right now Becky's the deputy clerk, but she's certified as a clerk, so we'll talk about whether it makes sense for a transition on her end. And the reason why I bring it up here is because in ordinance, it lays out specific ordinances that say, here's who is the clerk, here's who's the deputy clerk. And so if there's going to be a potential change in personnel, the office of city clerk typically is set up like through state statutes, so you would have to modify the city ordinances. The question I have for you is, if there's a change to happen through finance, can we just include any ordinance modifications through finance as part of that action? Or do we have to go to the ordinance committee, and then go to finance, who really works on personnel, and then come back to the ordinance committee if there's any changes? Or does it make sense just to consolidate it all at the finance level? I think it would. I think it would make sense that way, but I at least wanted to just touch base with the ordinance committee about,
It's just kind of a change from happy to glad, right?
what's that?
The ownership, just changing the ownership of the city clerk, right?
Yeah, pretty much, but because it's an official city office, we do have to have it outlined in city ordinance. So you'll see, like, the city ordinance here that's on the sheet, just under city administrator, it talks about the office of city administrator.
Yep.
The offices of the clerk, the treasurer, and the administrator, that's 3 different offices. So it's not just positions, it's like officials of the city. So those 3 are combined into mine here. And then there are references here to state law and how we're governed and what we elect to work through in chapter 62, 66. But so you'll see, it's about a page and a half just on a brief rundown of my position. That's not a job description, that's just, here's what it is by state law and city ordinance. And then you come down to like deputy clerk, and it just says, Administrator may appoint a deputy clerk. Council shall set the salary of the deputy clerk. So it would be a little bit more maneuvering between the two. And then the third thing that's interesting is the bookkeeper accountant. When it comes to the ordinance, and the reason why this is important in requesting that we keep it all together is that when the finance committee set up Trina's position, it was a new position, it's bookkeeper accountant. So the job description is bookkeeper accountant. When it came to the ordinance identified that position as the deputy treasurer, even though the job description doesn't say that it is. So just making sure that whenever we do this, if we ever review any of this, just having in that one group would be good, because I think that's kind of how this got. Deputy treasurer was left out of the job description at the finance level, and then this was the ordinance and the ordinance committee, and it's not that difficult, it shouldn't be that difficult, but my request would be that if we could just run it, then it's just an advisory thing from you guys, if we could just leave it all at finance, and I believe the two of you are on it anyway,
Yeah,
so.
that's what I was just gonna say.
So it ends up being you anyway,
Well, that's what I
but,
told Patrick too, with both of us on it, it would be.
Same difference, sorry, Rich.
okay, that's, nothing more than that for right now, it's just so you know, because it's an official office, if we do make a change there, that there would have to be some maneuvering in the ordinances. Be some housekeeping that way, but if we could keep it all together, then you avoid things like I showed you with the deputy treasurer, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Administrator's report?
That's really all I got, as it relates to code enforcement. We've got a couple things that we're working on right now, people call and complain, garbage, junk in yards. I have a couple people calling me about grass cutting. And what it is I think it's vacant lots. One of them's against the lake, where people are calling and saying, well, hey, their grass is longer than 8 inches, you should have somebody go cut it, and it's like, right now. So working through some of those things. I think what they're looking at is like some overburden and some brush and things like that they could cut out. Some of that stuff makes sense, but grass, we try to use a little bit of common sense with some of these issues that come in, and I don't just blow them off, so we're looking into some of them. Other than that, I don't have too much else.
Any update on, the treehouse?
The tree house?
Yeah. Raise order?
Oh, over here?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they did select a contractor, Mathwig is gonna do the work, it sounds like.
Oh,
And then I think they hired Elkey's to, I didn't think there was power to it, but I think they were coming in to take the power out of it. But the people that own the house are from here and went to school, I think, with Mathwigs and Elkey's, so that's who they were talking about, that's who they were selecting to do the work. Now, whether they need to go and get an asbestos check, just like we learned that we had to, I'm not sure, I haven't heard on that at all, but I'm assuming that's coming down the road here too, that. The one thing that I'm keeping an eye on over there is if they do have to do an asbestos check, the companies we talked to said that if you do that in the winter, it's not, you have to kinda have it temperature controlled on some level, and if you're pulling the exterior off, the guy for the $40,000 quote said, he would tent the whole house and then heat it through the winter if we needed to, and I thought, no, that's not, I don't think that makes sense, I don't think that's reasonable to do that, and if these people are required to do something like that, maybe it's a March, April type thing where we wait, but.
do you have a timeline at all from?
No, the only thing they said was they were just waiting on getting a contract finalized with Mathwig, and,
I'd push them on it to
Right.
get a date.
yep,
Same
Yeah,
as
we will.
Did with the other one, they gave us dates and.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise we should act, so.
yep, that sounds good, that's
Such-
all I got.
Such other matters authorized by law. Anybody got
I
anything?
guess kinda already hit it, I guess.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Jumped the gun on
There you
that.
have it, yep.
So I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. 4:14.
Very good, thank you, everybody.